Alejandro Toledo is the president of Peru since he was elected in the year 2001. He has focused on social reforms, combating corruption, and reviving the nation's economy. On Tuesday, he addressed the United Nations General Assembly. Here is my conversation with him following his address to that General Assembly. What has changed in Peru since I last saw you?
The economy is growing. Last year, the economy grew over the 5.2%. We have been able to reinsert Peru in the international democratic community. The financial system is having greater trust. The macroeconomic angle is working very well. I have to admit that the benefits of those accomplishments are not reflecting as much as I would like it in the packets of people yet, but that takes time. We have strengthening democratic institutions. We are trying to recuperate faith and self-esteem of the Peruvians after 10 years of corruption and disappointed. And we have done some considerable work in the area of poverty. That's my central issue. I come from there. I know what it is. As I told you last time, I'm the result of a statistical error. I am free, my friend, now, thanks to education. Now, as a head of a state, I have the responsibility that the 54% of people who live below the poverty line will have the option to be free, but not as a result of a statistical error, but rather as a right to have a health and education of quality. Free thanks to education.
You have said that what you have to do is attract both Wall Street and Main Street, meaning that Wall Street will help that, trade, investment, the growth of private enterprise, the development of human capital, that at the same time you have to make sure that that growth has consequences for Main Street, which is the people who live in Peru. Why is that so hard? Go ahead.
I'm impressed. Because it's difficult to understand, looking from the United States or from New York, that part of the world, Latin America. And here you have an enormous challenge as a leadership of the region. How do you make congruent and compatible the requirements of Wall Street, which is to manage the economy responsibly, low fiscal deficit, low inflation, country risk low, increase private investment, create an adequate climate to attract investors, to comply with the IMF? That's part of what Wall Street wants.
They want to see institutions, they want to see regulations,
Stability,
they want to see stability and a structure.
Economic stability, social stability, but fundamentally legal stability.
Right. Accountability.
Accountability. And the other side, you have Main Street. That is the people who said, listen, you have told me that we should go through a structural adjustment of the last 20 years, that we should put our house in order economically. We have done that.
We have shown patience.
We have shown patience. We already went through 20 years. We were good students. And where is the growth and where is my job? So people are screaming in the streets. They want employment, and then they want more income. And they want to increase their standard of living. If we are not able, if Wall Street is not able to cross Main Street, we run the risk of putting in dangerous democratic governability in a region that has high social expectations that we have not been able to meet.
Because it opens up the temptation of extra legal means, and it opens up the temptation of corruption.
Absolutely. Because you have fragile democratic institutions, If you don't have jobs, of course, delinquency prevails. If you don't have strong democratic institutions, the judicial system gets more corrupt. People are find a way to survive. People begin losing some hope in democracy in that stages. And so you begin pushing the idea that authoritarian governments have firm and they delivered, and democracy begins to be questioned.
When you are sitting with Lula or Kirchner, do you see these issues the same, even though you represent Peru, Argentina, and Brazil?
Well, I preside the group of Rio that agglutinates 19 head of states. We see it now. We have presented it. I took the leadership to present this proposal of finding a way to finance an increase of public expenditure in roads, schools, and hospitals that accompanies private investment, and that we will talk with the president of the World Bank, the IMF, the IDB, and I have asked today the Secretary General of the United Nations to participate in a private conversation with those institutions and the leaders of the 8 most industrialized countries.
Okay, so you asked the Secretary General
to intervene,
to use his good offices
That's
to
right.
intervene with the IMF and the World Bank and the Secretaries of Finance and Treasury and the heads of state at the United States and Tokyo and Japan, France, and Britain.
the 8 industrialized countries.
Right. In order to ask them to do what?
Together to find a creative financial mechanism that enable us to increase public expenditure in roads, schools, and hospitals that generates jobs while we manage responsibly the economy. Because if we don't do that, people in Latin America are not ready to wait 20 more years to see sustained rates of economic growth.
But how much of the problem, some would say, has been the quality of the leadership? There's
no doubt that there is.
And the level of corruption?
No doubt that that's one variable, an important one. The quality of leadership has been changing, and I'm not about to make a judgment on that.
Right.
The profile of leadership in Latin America has been changing, and increasingly they are not the traditional politicians. There are more people who come from professional. I'm not a professional politician.
No, you were a professor.
When I was intelligent, I was a professor before I got into politics.
Yes.
And so the same is happening in other parts of the world. Maybe we need to be more close to the reality of our people and do less coffee politics.
Coffee politics.
Maybe we need to take the pulse of our society more closely. Maybe we need to deliver concrete results rather than great dreams. And I'm a dreamer. The other issue that you mentioned, corruption. It disappoints people. It sends the wrong message to potential investors. If we don't have legal stability or a judicial system that respect the rules of the game of the investors, in this global world where we compete for capital investment, they will go all over the place.
You also run into certain kinds of protectionism when you try to sell your products as well, here and in other countries.
This is a very open program, so let me be very candid. It has come the time to build a trade-free way that goes both ways. You cannot ask us to play football in a free market field where you ask us to open up our markets, not to protect our agriculture sector. And when I say you, I'm referring to Japan, European Union, the United States. And on the other hand, you are not practicing what you're telling us. Europe spends $1 billion a year in protecting their agricultural products. And when we're trying to promote our agriculture sector, said, no, that's against the rules of the free market. We need a more symmetric trade relationships. We want to be competitive. But don't put barriers in your market when we're trying to compete. Don't ask us to do something that you people don't practice.
Now, what's the best example of that from a product that Peru exports?
Agro-industry products.
Agricultural?
Agro-industry.
Agro-industry.
Textile.
Textile. Your growth industry, is that what you're saying?
Grow industry.
Right.
France protects their wine. Japan protects their rice. The United States protects their agricultural products. Textile.
Yeah, right.
What I'm saying is we need a more symmetric trade relationship, and I think it's good that we should talk about it. I just mentioned to my friend Jose Maria Aznar.
Yes.
I talked to my friend Chirac about this.
What did he say?
He said, listen, you know, I have a problem with the agriculture people.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Of course he does.
You know, because politicians want to get reelected.
And so how do we...
They don't want to offend principal constituents.
But how do I get jobs?
The Bush administration here, you know, supported steel tariffs.
So how do I generate jobs for the poor if what I produce I cannot sell it because I have barriers?
But on the other hand, you'd be, suppose, I mean, American industries would, American laborers would complain that jobs may be going to Mexico and other countries in Latin America and in South America.
Cheap labor.
Cheap labor.
Comparatively speaking.
Yeah, or to Asia.
Or Asia. China.
And therefore, they've got unemployed. Unemployment here is rising, has risen to it's the one issue that they can't get their hands around with respect to the economy.
True. There is no full employment economy that we know, huh?
Right.
That's theory.
Well, this is your field,
That's
economics.
Theory. It depends on the magnitude of your unemployment rates, but I can understand there are some sectors that are more labor intensive, such as the agriculture sector.
Sure.
Tourism, micro entrepreneurship, and that's what we're pushing. But I think that in this global world, it's not the time of confrontation. It's the time to be creative and think and put the cards on the table and say, how do we do?
Okay.
If South American economies grow, everyone will win. The inverse is also true. If the world economy is well, we will benefit.
When you, Fujimori, is he going to come back to Peru? Because you mentioned previous presidents.
If he had some sense of gratitude for what Peru gave him while he lived in Peru, he should have the courage to come to respond to the justice of Peru. He cannot hide cowardly behind a double nationality in Japan. We need not to let impunity go through. We need to walk towards a reconciliation. We need not to open up more hatred, but we need to know the truth. If you let impunity go by, then history could repeat again.
Thank you for coming.
You've been very kind.
It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thanks for that.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.